To the polls. Here's how the U.S. election works. Americans are heading to the polls for the election could have major implications for the global economy. Here's what to know about how the U.S. election works. Tens of millions of voters in the United States are heading to the polls next week for the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The vote, held on 5 November, has gripped much of the world's attention in recent months and could have a significant impact on the global economy. The election could also have major consequences on international issues ranging from the climate crisis to the reorientation of global supply chains. But how exactly do Americans pick their president? Here's what to know about how U.S. presidential elections work. Hitting the polls. Elections for the U.S. president and vice president occur every 4 years. The vote follows a lengthy primary process in which the two major political parties, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, choose a candidate through state caucuses and primary votes. Party delegates from all 50 U.S. states then officially nominate the candidate at a national nominating convention. This year, the Republican candidate is former President Donald Trump and the Democratic candidate is current Vice President Kamala Harris. Harris formally became the Democratic nominee in August after current President Joe Biden ended his bid for re-election in late July. For months, the two nominees have been courting voters, urging them to vote early and show up on Election Day, Tuesday, 5 November 2022. The date of the election stems from a rule that the U.S. Congress enacted in 1845 that mandated that U.S. states appoint presidential electors every 4 years on the Tuesday next after the first Monday in the month of November. At the time, the U.S. was a largely agrarian country, so the early November date allowed the handful of Americans who could vote at the time to access the polls after the autumn harvest and before the onset of winter today. Americans must register to vote in their home state ahead of the election. They can then mail in an absentee ballot, vote early at a designated polling place, or vote on Election Day. The Electoral College. The election of the U.S. president is not decided through a direct popular vote. Instead, presidential elections use a process known as the Electoral College. In this system, each of the 50 U.S. states is allocated a number of electoral votes based on their representation in the U.S. Congress. California, for instance, has 54 electoral votes while Wyoming has 3. The total number of electoral votes is 538. When voters cast their ballots, they are in fact voting for a slate of state electors that are pledged to their chosen candidate. In most states, the candidate who receives the majority of the popular vote wins all of the state's electoral votes. This is known as the winner-takes-all system. 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, use a proportional 2024 presidential election.